Are you ready to learn about the property market? Then you're in the right place. This is Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts, and property advisors to the people of Australia. Broadcasted from Whitehorse Studios on the Gold Coast. And now, here are your hosts, Hayden Ashton and Tom Egan.
G'day listeners and viewers across Australia. Welcome to Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts and all-round property advisors to the people of Australia. Today we are very excited to welcome two guests who are well-renowned within the new construction industry. They work with investors and owners across Australia to ensure the quality of their new home is up to industry standard. Every year they complete over 12,000 inspections, quality defect inspections across house and units right across Australia. They were a finalist in the Property Investor Awards for Building and Pest Inspection category. They've been in operation over 25 years and are the market leaders in this space. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Paul and Eric Korn from handovers.com. How are you guys?
We're good, thanks.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Hayden.
Yeah, really excited to have you guys on. So far across this series, we've had first home buyer specialists, property investment advisors, finance brokers, and real estate agents, and they've really opened the eyes to our viewers about a lot of things in the property market. But today is really going to give a good insight as to the background mechanics in terms of the construction process. And from for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with handovers.com, they are the original third-party defect inspection company in Australia. As I said, arguably leaders in the market, and essentially your role, correct me if I'm wrong, is to ensure that the clients are getting what they pay for, and they're getting a quality that's up to standard, and that it's functional and operational.
That's correct, yes.
So, guys, before we get into the logistics and how everything works and your role on a day-to-day basis, Paul, you're the founder. I'd really be interested to learn about the story of how you came to the idea of handovers.com, as you said earlier before we broadcasted, the first of its kind in Australia. What gave you the motivation and the passion to start what was relatively a new concept and hold, I suppose, clients' hands through the construction?
My background is I was a supervisor with A.V. Jennings.
Okay, yep.
And A.V. Jennings back then built a very, very good house. The only time I ever had a problem with a client was when they bought Dad, who might have been an electrician, or Uncle Bob, might have been a driver for Bunnings or something.
Yeah, yep.
And that's where the problem started. Their little bit of knowledge, that's where it all went pear-shaped. So I decided back then that I would jump the fence from what I was doing, and I would become the owner's eyes, because my knowledge, I believe, and I'm A.V. Jennings trained, and they were the best. And so I started Handovers. Now, the other thing was that we needed a name that anyone who builds or buys a new house or unit, you needed a name that everyone would know. So everyone who builds or buys will hear that word, your handover is that. So that's where the name came from.
And great name, it just is exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so everyone knows it. So when I first started, I did everything. I did the marketing, I did the accounts, the inspections. It was just me. Advertised with John Laws on 4BC, and from that day it just grew and grew and grew.
And tell us that story, because you mentioned it briefly off air. So your first ever, I suppose, voyage into the marketing space, you advertised on John Laws.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of research because FM radio versus AM radio. Now with FM, that's music type, but AM is a listening type. And I decided I'd go with John Laws because he was well respected in the radio world. And back then it was $600 a minute for a live read.
25 years ago.
25 years ago, a lot of money. They told me that the ad was on at like 9:27 on a Tuesday, and they played it, and I probably said, "Oh yeah, pretty good." The best part was that when John Laws did the live read, which was supposed to be a 60-second, he stopped halfway through and said, "Where's this company been? You know, we needed it years ago."
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
So he acknowledged it right then and there that there was a
Yep.
gap in the market.
And
Right.
he went on for about 5 minutes.
Right.
So anyway, I drove off, probably only went a couple of 100 metres and had to pull over because the phone rang. Took the load and did the details in the diary. Drove again, went another 50 metres, and that was my day, was just pull up, take the details.
And book them in. And ever since then, it's just been a windfall.
Well, within 6 months, I had our first staff member. He stayed with us for 11 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty good. So, and we're just, you know, we put a lot into our brand and our training of our guys. That's paramount because, you know, they are my eyes and they're my frontline troops.
Yep.
So that's where it all came from.
And so you were at AV Jennings, you're a supervisor carpenter by trade?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, yep.
And I'm a registered builder.
Yep.
So the three directors now, they were all registered builders. All the people that work for us are either carpenters or builders, ex-supervisors. So they have the knowledge of how a house goes together, which I think is paramount in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to know how things work and how the house moves and all that.
Yeah, that's right. And so you're supervisor for AV Jennings. You're a good builder at that time.
Yep.
But you would have seen, you know, as every supervisor does, adjoining jobs or neighbouring jobs and seeing some of the workmanship that was being conducted and would have just rolled your eyes and thought, what the hell's going on here?
Well, I can still remember when I worked for AVJ that we got a new painter in and I let him go for a day and a half and then went and checked him out. And I walked in and it was a stain job, you know, all the skirtings, architraves were all stained and he had bright yellow putty. And I said to him, why do we have bright yellow putty? He said, the stain will cover it. I said, but it's a clear. It's not, hadn't got any colour in it, it's just clear. So we had to pull that house apart, rip out all the skirtings, architraves, doors, re-veneer the window reveals, all because of his lack of detail. So, yeah, I've seen it all. We've seen everything from what we do now. There's nothing we haven't seen.
Yeah.
You know.
There's not a defect that you haven't encountered over 25 years, and especially 12,000 a year. And that, you know, that's right across Australia. That's a lot.
Huge.
It is. The best we've ever done was a house up behind Beenleigh. It was about 2 days before Christmas. My guy rang me and said, Paul, you've got to come and have a look at this. Now, our office is in Redcliffe. So I had to drive down to Beenleigh. I walked in, looked at the house. I went out and rang the owner and said, don't make your final payment.
Really?
Which, that's not my role, that's legal, but this house was that bad.
Really?
We got a solicitor to come to site between the Christmas and New Year. We met with the builder, the owner, flew up from Sydney, myself, and that builder bought the house back within half an hour.
Really?
Yeah. We couldn't get, the owner didn't lose $1, but he didn't make $1. But it was the worst house I've ever seen. And for about 7 years after that, I kept going back and leaving cards or knocking on the door, asking if the builder had actually sold the house because I wanted his licence. He was that bad.
Really?
Yeah, I would have gone to back then it was the BSA.
Yep.
But I would have tried to get his licence off him.
And that tells me a lot, and I'm sure it tells everyone watching and listening a lot about, I suppose, the passion involved behind what you guys do, and there's a genuine care to want to try and assist the owner in making sure that their house is going to stand the test of time and they're not going to encounter, issues, down the track.
Yeah, it annoys me when I see a bad job. It just gets under your skin because, it takes no longer to do a bad job than it does to do a good job.
Yeah.
So you might as well do a good job to start with,
Yeah,
If it's bad, it takes longer to fix anyway.
That's it, and that really annoys me. And we have some good arguments with supervisors.
Yep.
They want to argue with me, but yeah, we win plenty of battles because
Well, if you're playing by the rule book and it's code, it's very hard to lose. If you do the wrong thing and it's written there in black and white, there's not much of a standpoint to argue with, right?
No.
Yeah.
Like one of the big things a few years ago was inside the robes, the painters wouldn't sand the walls,
Right.
and they were all full of grit. And I used to write, sand and repaint wall inside robe. Anyway, one supervisor said to me, he said, you can't do that. And I said, why not? He said, you can't put your hand on the walls. I said, because, the rule is you've got to be 1.5 metres.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that's fine. I said, but in your spec, in your paint application, how it says on the can is to sand between coats. I said, and if you're not sanding between coats, then you're in the wrong. I said, I'm just feeling to make sure. Anyway, they
Fixed it up.
Fixed it up, yeah.
And Eric, you're now a director of Handovers.com. How long have you been in the organisation, mate?
So I actually started with Dad when I left school, so
Yep.
about 15 years ago. And yeah, I ended up, I didn't want to do an apprenticeship at the start, but anyway, I eventually got convinced into it. So I did an apprenticeship as a carpenter.
Yep.
Actually, when I started, the guy that had just finished before that's Nick,
Yep.
our general manager now. So yeah, when he finished his trade, I was starting.
Next in line.
So yeah, but and then after that, Nick and I subcontract carpenter for a lot of the main builders.
Yep.
And we had our own building company for about 5 years. So yeah, basically, and then I think it was end of 2015. Dad came back in and said, "Guys, I'm far too busy now. I need you to come and give me a hand." So we packed things up there and came back over.
And that's great. It must make it easy when you see your dad's passion about, the 25-year organisation and hear those stories. It must make you very proud, but also very passionate to keep that legacy of what is, a very, very well-known brand in the industry, to keep that constantly moving and evolving and continue on that legacy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we defend it. It's credibility. That's really all we've got. So, but, we're human as well. We might miss a thing here and there, but we do our best to pick up everything we can when we do the inspections. So.
Yeah, and what I mentioned it off air again is we actually really enjoy having third party inspections come out because it does a couple of things. Obviously, if you're proud and you stand behind your work, there's no reason why you should shy away from someone coming in and having a look. If you're doing the right thing and your processes and systems and trainings are in place for your construction team, you should be, as you said, it takes just as long to do a good job as it does a bad job. So we're very confident in our work. So we actually embrace someone coming in, but it also gives a channel of feedback. I suppose not being able to visit every site, me and Tom or Michael, the owner, it's practically when you're building 70 or 80 at any one point, it's very hard to make it to every handover. So you rely on your supervisors to make sure that your company ethics and morals and ethos is carried across every home you build. So having a defect inspection go through allows you to have that channel of feedback, whether it be, like as you said, you've got 3 supervisors and 2 of them are really good and one of them's getting more defects than the other and they might be using different trades, and it really allows, a quality assurance system to ensure that, your quality of work is maintained and the same right across the board.
That's right.
Yes.
And even on that, Hayden, so we do work for a number of people. We do it for clients, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. We do it directly for builders.
Oh, do you? Right.
Yeah, and for developers as well. So wherever we fit into that, we're always still just looking at quality, and a lot of builders will use us directly to help manage their quality and keep an eye on their supervisors and that kind of thing. So, and being independent as well, kind of separates us. We're not at the regular weekly meetings and stuff like that, but the management team can say, oh, look, you're getting 30 items from handovers.com, and John, up the end of the table, you're getting 10. So what are you doing different? Sort of thing, so.
And you can look back on your trades, and as you said, Paul, if you've got 2 supervisors using one kitchen, supplier or trade, and you've got another one, you can clearly identify there's a missing link or a breakdown somewhere, whether it be breakdown in what's expected or whatever may be happening.
Yeah, and it's a good way to keep tabs on what's going on in the builders, with their trades and all that. So yeah, it works. It's always worked. And as Eric said, a lot of builders now use our services. So which is good because it means they want to help keep their quality
maintained.
We always push our clients to use a defect inspector. That's the feedback we want, like Hayden said.
Yeah. As I was sort of mentioning earlier, there's a set of rules or a set of guidelines that you guys inspect to. QBCC delivers that code, or is it the master builders, or who?
Yeah, so in Queensland, the QBCC puts out a document called the Guide to Standards and Tolerances.
Yep.
And majority of the stuff that we look at, you can find in there.
Yep.
And really, what that is, it's a breakdown of Australian standards and that, but just stuff that you would see generally as you're building a house. So that's Queensland. The other states have their own, but they're all very similar because they come from the same documents.
Governing body. Yeah. And so what are some examples of you going through your, a 4-bedroom double lock up in a media room or whatever? What are you looking for when you go through there, or what are you training? Because I know a really big part of your organisation in maintaining that every defect inspection that is done in accordance with obviously the principles that need to be followed. What are some of those things that you're looking for? Maybe some of the common places where builders can maybe cut some corners or shortcut the process.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, we don't have a checklist per se.
Yep.
We're all just trained the same way to check the same things. And along that as well, we have a management role for the guys that audit our inspectors as well to make sure they're checking the right things. Because maintaining consistency within our inspectors and our organisation is pretty important too.
We have inspectors inspecting the inspectors.
Yeah,
right.
That's right, yeah.
Inspecting the supervisors.
Can't have too many audits.
Yeah, right. Okay.
The kind of things, it could be something as simple as hinge screws missing in doors. It might sound like a trivial thing, but over a couple of months, opening and shutting, the door could potentially fall off, things like that. If you talk about doors in general, sealing top and bottom edges to maintain the warranty, that kind of thing. Make sure the door actually shuts and the handle works and locks, and isn't loose. There's a lot of stuff that we go through, and paint work, plaster work. Make sure the cornices are straight, walls are straight, things like that.
Yep.
So there's a whole list of things that we go through.
And I think for me anyway, because even when I build my own homes, even as the builder, I always get a third-party inspector to go through as well, because you look at the same thing every day, and you miss like reading a book or studying or whatever it may be that you're doing. If you go over and over and over it again, you tend to sort of lose the actual information. So, and even supervisors, I mean, as you mentioned, Paul, they've got 20 or 30 jobs across the board, and they're all starting to blend in to one another. So having that third party come in and just put a bit of a green tape there on a chip tile that someone may have missed. But I think there's nothing better than, as a purchaser, making a decision and feeling confident about it as well. And so I think having that that reassurance, provided that the builder's done a good job, of course, but having that reassurance that someone's gone through, they've said, there's a couple of defects, and that's normal. I think to expect no defects is unreasonable, because in an industry or in a house, there's so many moving parts, and it could be as simple as the cleaner goes through and hits his vacuum on the door. There's always going to be defects, and I think limiting those and being assertive in their fixing them, I suppose, is the key part. And being confident in the decision that you've actually built a good home. Take all the investment, property side of things out, checklist that you go through before buying one or owner occupied or whatever it may be. But knowing that someone's gone over there, professional, especially with over 25 years in operation, and given it the green light, I think is going to really help you sleep at night.
I think giving the client peace of mind is paramount, because they're a novice when it comes to looking at the finish of a house. We know what's right or wrong. We know where we've got to stand to look at paint, all that sort of thing. Whereas an owner goes there and they might want to get, within a foot of the wall to look at the paint and all that. Yes, you'll see more there. But the rules are you've got to be that 1.5 metres natural light, 90 degrees. So a lot of owners get that sort of warm and fuzzy feeling because we've looked at it for them.
Yeah, you're giving them confidence.
Giving them that peace of mind on that house.
Yeah, and like you said, with the some of the clients being tradies, or they have some idea.
That's it.
That's where they're more troublesome, where they actually don't know what they're talking about. They have some idea about the work being done, and where you can give them that confidence, like, look, this is the standard. The builder has met that standard.
Yep.
And you can draw the line that for them, where we could have that argument with them if they just go by themselves.
Yep. Look, I've seen where we've done an inspection for an owner-occupier, and the two, husband and wife or whatever, all they're concerned about is, will the TV fit on that wall? Will the lounge fit here? They're not looking at the
Is
finish.
my fridge going to fit? You know,
That's it. But they're not looking at the finish of the house. We are. And, by the time we're finished, we've got this long list and they go, oh, we didn't see any of that. That's because they weren't looking. They were just getting the furniture in and worrying about that sort of thing. So, it makes a big difference for us to look at it to what an owner can. And the perception of what's right or wrong is another thing, So, we can... And the other thing that we've noticed over, 25 years is, and the classic was, a woman rang me up, wanted to meet me on site to look at a problem. I went there, she grabbed me by the arm, took me in, I think it was a column or something. She said, what do you think of that? And I looked at it and I said, no, that's fine. She said, oh, good, and walked away. And that supervisor walked up and said, mate, I don't believe it. And I said, what's that? He said, I've told her about 19 times. He said, you've been here 5 minutes and the problem's fixed. I said, you're the builder. I said, a lot of owners don't believe the builders because you never see good things on TV about builders.
Correct.
They're always the bad bits.
Bad news sells.
That's it, So, And we've also, I've had a client where it was a unit in Melbourne actually, where I went and did it, and she rang me up and abused us. I said, what's the problem? She said, there's only 6 items on my list. I said, well, the less items, the better the year.
What's the problem?
Property sounds great.
But, that's
I know
how it
we
works.
target with our supervisors to try and get in single digits. We always, they always, on each side, it's like, can we try and get, 10 and under, which is a good achievement on the
that's
homes.
great.
We're always targeting that. Under construction manager always showing the boys, and that's where we was mentioning before with trades. They're always communicating between the supervisors, which is a better tradesman, to try and get that tradesman on site because they're going to do a better job with the same inclusion, but they're actually putting it together better and looking after that. So
yeah, many a time I've said to a supervisor, mate, who's your painter? And he'll say, oh, Fred.
Yeah.
I said, well, if Fred wants another $1 a square metre, pay him. I said, because this is magnificent.
Right.
And we've got one of the guys, I think he takes an extra 4 days and he does it by himself. He doesn't put anyone else on with him. He just paints the whole house himself. Yep. And the supervisor's feedback says that you can't find anything. It's that good because he's so over the top. So everyone's always trying to fight over, because we're doing so many homes, you've got to think, we've got to use someone else. So they're always trying to fight to book him up first. So.
Well, see, that painter is making the supervisor's role a lot easier because he's so good.
And it's ultimately going to save time as well from a construction point of view, because if you've got 50 odd markups to get a painter back, and then getting them back is another thing. If you've got a if you've got a shitty trade, getting them, that's what we really like, because it allows us to. It's so hard to get a trade back 3-6 months. They've been paid, and to get a trade back after they've been paid is a lot harder than getting you guys through, saying here's what needs to be fixed. The owner's going to be happy. We're going to be happy. The trade's going to be happy. We'll get it done first time round or second time round once you guys have been through. And then, you wrap it up in a bow and hand it over, and it's it's all rosy. Happy days ahead.
Yeah. That's it. And I guess because, an owner or a tenant, if we're not picking them up or someone's not picking them up along the way, then they're going to have, trades coming back through as they're moved in. They've got to arrange access and might have to come back, get trades back through 10 times, which is inconvenient to the person that's living in the house. So if you can get it all done at handover, it's a lot better.
And that's why we always look after our trades and suppliers. We always do volume with them, where if something does come up with a defect, they're there within a couple of days because they care about the future of the work of that they're actually getting from us. Okay, we're giving them full-time work every year. They're going to come back within 2 days, not I'll be there in 3 weeks when someone's moved in, which is always a problem. Yep. No one wants to be moved in the home and someone's trying to paint a wall.
That's right, yeah.
It makes it harder.
What do you always say?
What's that?
It'll make them more money.
Yeah, that's right. That's how we sell it to builders, is that if the trades look at our lists and see what we're picking in, it might be the tiler, and if he sees what we're picking in him, he learns from that. And same as the paint markup. He'll learn from that. So therefore, the supervisor says, mate, we're going to use handovers, learn from it. So the next few, he hasn't got all, and take a painter, he's there for 2 hours doing his touch-ups. Next thing, he's only there for half an hour and he's gone. So he's just made more money.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, time is money, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so over 25 years, I mean, you guys would have seen a lot of, or every problem that has ever been encountered on the building site. You guys have seen it. What are some of that stick in your mind as to some of the ones that you just can't believe, and some of the outcomes that you've been able to produce for your clients to ultimately get a resolution and some sort of level of I suppose fulfillment upon completion?
I've had houses repainted inside. Mm-hmm. The paintwork's been that bad, and I've asked for the director of the building company to come and have a look. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, "Oh, would you accept this in your house?" And over a few years, supervisors and that used to say, "Yeah, I would." And I knew they were lying, and I wondered how I could beat that. So what I do now is, if a supervisor, it depends on their age, if they're a younger supervisor, I'll say to them, "If this job was for your mother and father, would you accept it?" And that normally gets, I'll fix it, because I've made it personal. And if they're an older supervisor, I'll say, "Would you accept this for your kids?" So, but yeah, like repainting houses, that's a big one. The paintwork's just that bad. Some of the like townhouse developments and unit developments, there's been some good ones in that where, and I've got some photos, but yeah, they're just that bad. Like a tub cabinet, a 600 tub cabinet.
Yep.
The wall was that they cut the back wall of the tub, like where the tub was going to push up, so they could actually push the tub into the wall so they could get the doors to close.
Oh, right.
Trouble is, when I filled the tub up to the top of the stainless steel tub, it was flush at the front and 20 mil down at the back. It was that far out of level,
Yeah,
Things like that you just think, why do they do it?
And you got to scratch your head and just think, this is just atrocious. And unfortunately, it's one of those guilty by association things. You've got a couple of builders or, builders out there who do shit jobs.
Yep.
But it taints the whole industry, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
When people ring up and say, who's a good builder? I said, look, really, when you think about it, the supervisor builds your house.
It is the most important. Yeah.
Your house is only as good as your supervisor.
Yep.
Now, when I go to a house where I've got an owner-occupier or a client on site, I always walk around the house and then go in and meet the owner and the supervisor. I did that once and walked in and introduced myself to the client. I knew the supervisor, "How you going, Laurie?" And while I still had his hand, I said, "Mate, when are you going to finish the fascia and gutter out the back?" And he looked at the client and laughed and said, "Oh, he's funny." And I said, "No." And it was a two-storey and a low bit at the back, and where the fascia ran into the brickwork, it was 300 mil short. And he walked out and he looked at it and he said, I've never seen that. I said, "No." I said, "You haven't looked." I said, "I've been here 5 minutes and found it."
Yeah.
I've looked. I said, "But you've been here." And so, yeah, that was, they're the sort of things you see and you just wonder how it happens. But, look, supervisors and builders don't set out to build a bad house.
No.
That's the thing. It just, along the way, sometimes the wheels fall off.
Yeah, like a care mismanagement.
Yeah. They might be, overworked or whatever, but, or they got a bad trade that just, couldn't give two hoots.
Yeah. And so let's go down the path hypothetically, and I'm sure you've probably encountered this. So you've just finished an inspection, the house is a shithole. There's more defects, you've run out of tape. The builder then is arguing with you and refuses some of these defects. What course of action does a client have, and do you assist in that process as well?
So we could give them some advice. It depends what state the home's in. But generally, you could go to the likes of, if you're in Queensland, the QBCC.
Yep.
No builder wants to go through that, particularly if it's bad. They should know the difference between a bad and a good job.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll go to meetings and stuff. If the client says, can you come and
mediations almost,
to chat to the builder about it, particularly if it's a bad job, because we want a good result just as much as the owner does. So we can help in those situations. Yeah.
The best part is we speak, builders speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So an owner, a lot of owners don't want to have that conflict with their builder. I've been employed by a client to go and ask one question. Can you go and ask the builder this? So I'll go and ask the builder, get an answer, and then go back to the owner. But yeah, there's I don't know why that is, because it's easy to ask any question of a builder, but it just I guess if the builder's an aggressive builder, nearly all the project builders are fine. It's the little type builder that we find that they're a bit more aggressive with their clients. But, we'll help them as much as we can. I always tell the client, look, you've got my number, give me a call if there's a problem. And, it's easy to talk a client through what they should do and how to fix a problem. We're not lawyers by any means, but, that's why the QBC's there. If they follow the protocol, I always tell owners, make sure that you write things down. Always, keep a diary, keep your emails, do everything in writing because it's good for everybody, and the builder, yourself. You've got to do that.
Do you still head out on site and do any more defect inspections?
Yeah, I'm still out there.
Wow, okay. I thought just by picking up what you were saying that you're still out on site. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, still get out.
You must love it.
I do. I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like the other day.
Keeps all the staff on their toes.
Like the other
Get
day.
a phone call from him, you know something's wrong, generally.
Well, they sent me out the other day. My first job was in Harvey Bay.
Yep.
My second job was in Townsville. The third job was in Mareeba. So, we travel a fair bit.
Because my next question was, what do you even cover regional towns? So that's awesome. So you cover everywhere.
Yeah.
So how does that, I'm interested to know, from a business standpoint, that's obviously a lot of ground to cover. How do you make that work as part of your business model? You just have to lose some, win some, you lose some, and maintain the market share, I suppose.
Yeah.
We have investment companies that give us work.
Yep.
And they might give us 400 jobs. Now, they might get a job. Look, I did a job in Longreach. Right. Had to fly to Longreach, drive an hour and a half with the owner of the house on a dirt road, do the inspection, stay the night and get the plane back the next morning. But that investment company that got me that job, they might be 400 job. Yeah. I would have done my bum on that job.
Yeah.
But I serviced that investment company.
Yeah.
Yep, and their client. Yep.
Yeah. So that's how I've always done it. We'll go anywhere for our investment companies.
Yep. Especially for the investor that has multiple properties, they're calling you guys directly to do every single one of their homes.
That's right. Yeah.
And without that, I suppose, specifically in regional areas, I mean, I'd assume that you guys would be the only company doing that sort of level of service. Like, I wouldn't imagine that there's many others who are, because that's what, by the time you get your flight, your accommodation, you're a couple of grand deep, and you're charging not even probably 20-25% of that. That's so you're going to lose, a couple of grand then and there. But there's no other company that I would imagine being prepared to do that, which is obviously why you guys are still the market leaders.
Yep. Unless they're covering the costs. But
so there's very few companies that specialise solely in new properties, particularly in those regional areas where, you might get a pre-purchase building inspector that, can do handover inspections, but that's all we just specialise in the one.
And they're probably the most important regional areas too, where builders are probably like all the supervisors like, we don't get many of the defect inspectors up here. We'll probably train to your level. It builds character, she'll be right.
We did some jobs in Middlemount. Now, Middlemount, you had to fly to Emerald and then drive up to Middlemount.
Yeah.
To fly to Emerald was $126. Brisbane Emerald, $126. But it was $715 from Emerald to Brisbane.
Right.
So, but we would go up and do, there was, I think, 56 houses in the project, so we'd go and do half of them. But, they were the worst houses I've ever seen. They were shocking.
Wow.
So what, you go through these houses at Middlemount, they're the worst houses you've ever seen. What's the conversation with the builder or the supervisor at that point? Is it, mate, pull your fucking head in, or is it, mate, what's going on here?
That was it. It was, mate, these are shit.
Yeah.
Like, the way this guy ran the job was 56 houses, so he got all the material up and put it in the carports. So there's no sides on the carports, no doors. But he had all his internal doors stacked there. He had all his mouldings, had everything all out in the weather except for the roof. That. But, any driving rain got in there, and like when they did the fences, they built them at 1,500 high. They were metal fences, and they were supposed to be 18, so he just made up 300 and stuck them on the top,
Oh, mate.
So I had, and it was a developer on the Gold Coast.
But it's sad, it's...
And so I had to talk to the developer and tell him these are the worst I've seen. So he then had to try and, we did I think we didn't end up doing 3 inspections, but they were just bad.
And so, I mean, from a builder standpoint, if you're talking like mass materials left out in the weather, that's not a small job. Like, that's extensive rework. And, you know, that's obviously adding to holding costs for your investor. It's very hard to rent out because, you know, people aren't dumb. If you're looking at the fence, you're like, that doesn't look right? It doesn't take
What's
a
the
rocket
inside gonna
scientist.
be?
Like I'm no carpenter, but I'd be able to notice notice something like that. So it adds a lot of stress to the situation.
Oh yeah, but like we had, I remember I spoke to a lot of the clients, and they weren't happy. So the developer then had to try and appease the clients. You know, like even he had all these. They were 6 metre wide roller doors. He had them delivered wrapped in plastic, but they were on site for like 6 months with the sun beating down. So what can't you get off a roller door? Plastic.
Yeah.
It was to cut costs. Obviously, they bought it at volume. We got 50 at once. Let's put them in the warehouse.
That's it.
Not even in the warehouse. Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Put 'em
Let's
in
put
the
them
paddock.
somewhere,
Yeah.
and we'll build them cheap.
Oh yeah.
Not expecting that someone would actually get a defect inspector probably out there either.
And see, they had transient trades.
Right.
You know, like I've never seen an 11 mil gap on a latch side of a door until I went there. You could actually see the grass when the door was shut out through the rebate of the door frame.
Wow.
What animals coming in?
Things like that, you know, it's just bad.
Yeah, right. And see that just boggles my mind because it's so foreign for us to hand over anything like that. But it's obviously you must see it quite commonly.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, there's still companies out there that still do it.
Yeah.
You think, how do you do this? You know, how can you treat a client like that?
Yeah.
And most of them say, oh, it's an investment home. That's what annoys me when they say
Yeah.
it's only an investment home.
Yeah.
You know,
That's it really does. It's such a shame because there's so many good people in the industry, but you have these bad eggs that ruin it for everyone. And the fact, whether it be, you know, an investment home, whether it be a multi-million-dollar home, you know, whether it be a $300,000 home, owner-occupied or first home buyer, you know, whilst the tolerances change, I'd imagine, depending on your pricing and all that sort of stuff, what shouldn't change is the care.
that's right.
I suppose you know. So yes, you know, you've got to expect a certain level of workmanship or tolerances based on what someone's paying, but the care shouldn't change or the attitude shouldn't change, no matter what. Whether it be used as a fucking shed or a sit vacant, it's still got to be, you know, reasonable, and you've got to care about what you're doing.
Yeah, no, we did some jobs in Gladstone, it was, and every one of these houses, when you opened up the tub cabinet, the wall in the back wasn't painted. And I said to the builder, I said, mate, you've got to paint that. He said, oh, no, we don't do that up here. I said, really? He said, yeah, we don't paint that. I said, so do you paint the inside of a robe? He said, yeah. I said, well, what's your space? Is it a 2 or a 3 coat system? He said, it's a 3 coat. So I just opened up the door, pointed to the bare plasterboard and said, well, there's no paint there. Now go and paint it. So he politely told me to get fucked and left.
Yeah, right. And what I'm really intrigued about too is with the QBCC being a governing body, you need to have the license to build homes, etc. But do you guys, unfortunately, there's obviously builders that go under and go bust, and that's where I suppose some of the, if you've got another builder taking over on the tender panel or whatever, there can be a misalignment of expectation throughout, the swap over. What are some of the challenges I suppose you'd face in that? And then how do you, if a tender panel builder takes over that job and they're dealing with, fuck ups, generally if a builder's going broke, the quality of workmanship's probably, on its way out anyway previous. That must be an interesting situation to deal with. It
is, but I always look at it that builder who's taken on that job, he knows his role.
Yeah.
Or should know his role.
Well, he's on the QBC's tender panel.
That's
so
right.
He's obviously experienced and got... Yeah.
Yep. So therefore, all you've done is taken that builder out of the line and you've put in a new builder.
Yep.
But the finish should still be the same at the end. He can't say, oh, yeah, well, I didn't price that that's what his role is. He should know all that. And then the house that is produced should meet, the criteria.
And are they obligated to let's just say there's an issue with, are they obligated to fix the errors done previous to them as well? Like, are they, or is it, like, oh, mate, I didn't do that. I didn't do the frame or I didn't do the slab or whatever. It's, not my...
That's a bit of a grey area.
Right.
The QBCC, I believe that if a wall, let's take a wall that's out of plumb.
Yep.
So the tolerance is 4 mil, 2.4. The builder that takes over that job, if that wall's 20 mil out of plumb and it's found at the end of the job, then that builder should have the right to fix that. Even though he hasn't put a level on it, he should go back to the QBCC and say, look, we've found this, because the standards and tolerances say this. So therefore, it's back on the QBCC then, I believe.
That's what you pay our insurances for, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
So I think before taking the job and going on the tender, that assessment would be done.
Well, you'd
What
hope it would
damage
Should be done, yeah.
It should be done.
What damage is done to the property
Yep.
to know, okay, we've got to count for actually taking the frame down and restarting. It might be this far with the roof on, but we've got to take that off, start from slab again to ensure it's right.
You know, and if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. When I worked for A.V. Jennings, I did that. I pulled the frame down because I couldn't fix it. A team came in and put this frame up, and they came back after 3 days and said, we want to get paid. And I said, I'll just go. And I said, we've got to do a write-up. And I went there Friday afternoon and put a level on and went, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, right.
So I rang them and said, meet me there Monday. Met them there Monday and said, boys, this is what we've got to do. We're going to fix this, this and this. And there was another 2 guys down the road. I said, they'll give you a hand, and whatever's left, we'll give you. Anyway, when I left, they just packed up and nicked off.
Yeah, right.
So I pulled that whole house down. And the funny thing was, his wife went home. She went there on the Monday and was all excited because here's the frame. We pulled it down on Tuesday. She went back Tuesday afternoon and went, the frame's gone.
Was it looking at the wrong house? Yeah.
So she went home, and her husband was a motorbike cop, and she said that my frame... No, sorry, she went home and told her husband on the Tuesday night. So he went there, he was a motorbike cop, went there Wednesday, and there was nothing there. And he went home and got into her and said, you're nuts, the house isn't there. So she made him drive back with her, and there was just a slab. And, so they rang up the state manager of Jennings and wanted to know where the house had gone.
It had been stolen, someone had nicked it.
So then I got a phone call from the state manager and said, where's Mrs. Jones's house?
Yeah, where's the frame gone?
So I told him, and he rang her up and said, no, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We do it right. We don't
And they
do
would
it
be
wrong.
happy. Who cares about an extra week? That's right.
Well, I think we worked it, that we actually got it back on track, like I put all the apprentices and, we pushed that hard.
Just scheduled them earlier.
Yeah, got it back. But, you can't, if it's not... My philosophy is if it's right, it's right. If it's not, you fix it.
Yeah. And that's got to be the attitude, because at the end of the day, the people are paying money for it.
Yeah.
It's not as if you're building them for free.
No.
You've got to. Everyone's in this business, and everyone's got to make money. The wheel's got to keep turning. As a company, we've got to make money, but vice versa. If that wheel doesn't turn and the client doesn't make money and they end up doing their arse on it, they're not going to come back, and then everything shuts down. So as long as you have that approach about the wheel keep turning and everyone's got to have a favourable outcome. Yeah. It's just like there's no point screwing the builder down, and the builder's no good broke to you either.
That's
so
right.
it's got, everyone's got to be fair and reasonable and set out the expectation from the start. And that's obviously your specification and inclusion document is a good start. But it still amazes me that, because we'll often get calls from clients who may have been using us and then gone maybe down the retail path or the non-turnkey path and being caught out in that aspect. And it's like, well, you don't really have a leg to stand on. You can kick and scream all you want, but you've signed that contract with Mr. Retail Builder, and that's what they've done, exactly what they've said they're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's your, unfortunately, it's your responsibility and your fault that you haven't, done the appropriate, checks and balances to ensure that, it's going to be suitable to what you need. And, to finish your house once once it's done and you don't have floor coverings, it's not a cheap exercise.
That's it.
Mm.
And they've got a mortgages service now, so getting someone in to do the tiles or the flooring is $8,000. They've got to save for that.
Yeah.
And also maintain mortgage.
We find a lot of people just don't understand what they've signed up for or what they're getting. They don't read the plans.
Yeah.
They don't put enough time into their house,
Yeah, the amount of times you hear, I thought. As soon as they say that, well, there's if you didn't know, then there could be a problem.
Yeah, I thought the back patio was going to be tiled.
Mm.
No, it doesn't say tiled on your plan anyway.
I always tell them, show me the spec sheet that you've got sometimes when they're comparing, and have a look, and it's always allowance or subject to, and I'm like, okay, that's really just, and it's, or it writes,
Warning bell.
12,000 allowance on site costs. Please note in bold if any other soil types required, if we run into rock, if any of these are required, you will be paying extra for this. And I'm like, it says it in very clear writing, so we can then tell you the difference in pricing. So, and that's what I was mentioning before. It's always, they think they're comparing apples with apples, but they're not. And that's the unfortunate part. But it's too late when the house is built and they've got a mortgage to service, and now it's all of a sudden a lot harder when they were saving before and rent was cheaper. So,
well, I had a builder the other day ring me, and I had to go and have a look at a house for him. They'd given up on the client.
Right.
The client just wouldn't listen. And everything the builder said, the builder was lying. It wasn't right. So I went there. One of the things was that the cavity doors into the media room, 2 sliding, that they were coming out of the track. And I said, show me. So she grabs one door and goes, bang. And, of course, it pivots on the thing and the bottom pops out. I said, okay. So I put it back. I said, now watch this. And I just slid it normally. I said, that's how you're meant to do it. Oh, the shower screen was leaking. I said, well, what do you mean? Oh, there's water out on the floor. I said, shower screens aren't waterproof.
Yeah.
I said, you have splash. I said, when do you get all this water? Oh, when the daughter's in the shower. So, I said, how long do you have a shower? Oh, 20 minutes. I said, so she's there playing on the bottom of the shower, and I said, that's why the water gets out.
Yeah.
But the classic was the toilet. It doesn't flush. So what do you mean it doesn't flush? Well, you have to flush it twice to get rid of what's in the pan. I said, well, that's not the builder's fault. I said...
Stop eating curry.
Or maybe eat more.
Yeah, that's right.
I said, don't eat so much fibre.
Yeah, that's right.
But, and then she said, oh, and the system takes so long to fill up. So I just reached down and fully turned on the stopcock.
Yeah, right.
But the things that she wanted is just wrong,
Yeah, not
reasonable. Not reasonable, but in her mind. And I said to her, and then they said, oh, you're not independent. I said, I am independent. I said, doesn't matter who pays me. I said, if you don't think I'm independent, you pay me. I said, we'll tell the builder not to pay me. You pay me for this inspection. Then I'm independent. I'm working for you. I said, but the report will be the same. We don't change because a builder pays us. Every one of our reports, if we did them for free, if we did them for anybody, they still say the same. But she wouldn't have it. So I said, look, here's the number of the QBCC.
Yeah.
You get them out. I said, but I will tell you one thing. And she said, what's that? I said, you're going to get the same result from when they come out. So,
and because there's with you guys, I notice as well, because there's such a level of care and passion involved in what you do, you guys are probably more thorough than anyone. It's not just about getting there, flick and tick and putting the invoice in and getting paid. Whereas there's an actual passion behind it, and obviously being the founding fathers, I suppose, of the industry, comes with that a lot of responsibility, I suppose, to keep ahead of the game and maintain that reputation.
Yeah, well, our training, Eric and Nick, with the training of our inspectors, is paramount. Until we get them right, they're not set free. Yeah. They stay with us. And if they don't make the grade, well, we part company.
Yeah, move them on. Yeah. And sorry.
There you go.
So, talk us through. We've talking about the ins and outs of it, but the handover time or the inspection date's been set. What actually occurs on the day, and how do you deliver that to the client so that they can see it and also deliver it to the builder?
So they do the booking for the inspection online via our website. Usually, if you realistically, you could do that booking when you sign the contract. That way we've got it in the system, and we'd touch base with whoever the builder might be and say, hi John, Mrs. Jones has put in a request for us to do a practical completion inspection. Can you let us know when it's going to be ready? Basically we handle it from there and we keep open communication. So we really act as the client from that point. And then we'll copy the client into the emails, or if we have a phone call, we just let them know about the correspondence and say, oh, he said it's ready for the 26th. And then a couple of days prior, we confirm the job. And then so basically then that's all done through the office, and then the guys go out at a certain time and do the inspection. And the clients are more than welcome to be there if they're able to be. So normally we obviously have certain work hours for the guys, which generally they start on site at 7, and we try not to book jobs past say 2:30. So if a client's going to be there, sometimes they might have to take time off work. But yeah, pretty much we handle the whole lot, and they just get a date and time, and like I say, they're more than welcome to come out and go around, ask questions, and all the rest of it. So.
How long does an inspection take?
For a normal size house, we allow an hour and a half.
Okay, so it's quite a long, extensive time.
Yeah. And yeah, often, some clients, if they've never used the service before, they're kind of a bit cautious about what we're looking at. And by the time you get to the front left-hand corner of the house, they're gone because they see how intently we're looking at the building. So, and they think, I was never going to look at it this hard. These guys have obviously got it in check. So.
Yeah, that's right. It's a confidence builder,
They'll go inside and just see where they're going to put the couch.
That's right. They take the tape measure and do all the measurements and fun stuff for them.
Yeah, right. And so you've identified, you put your green tape everywhere, so the builder sort of has a visual of where you think some work needs to be done. You wrap it up in a little report.
Yep.
And deliver that to the builder. And is that, we work off 10 days, is that an industry standard? Is that QBC sets that, or?
That's pretty standard for most builders, for rectification works from practical completion. And then all of our reports now, they're sent from site.
Right.
So as soon as the guy hits send from his iPad, basically, within a couple of seconds, the supervisor will have his report. He can start reading through it straight away, action it to the trades, that kind of thing.
So while he's there, present in the house, you've just had the conversation with him, this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed. He can get on the blower straight away, because what you were saying before, Paul, is, he takes 2 steps and then, another house is got something else going on. He takes 4 steps and another phone call. My brother is actually a supervisor for us, and the amount of the phone, obviously being in sales, my phone rings a lot, and I thought I thought my phone was off the hook until I spent a day with him, and it's just bang, ring, because you're managing maybe 15 or 20 houses at any one point. That's 15 to 20 sets of trades or suppliers or whatever it may be that are all trying to get onto you to work out deliveries or whatever it may be. So that's really interesting. So the supervisor, have some sort of software that auto generates the report, photos and whatnot, and it gets sent straight to them pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
We input it into our app. So we hand type everything in. And then we do our photos. They're attached to that report, and then send, and then it just goes to the builder, supervisor, owner, and our office. And
And with that too, talk about managing. Well, our inspectors, really the only person they've got to manage is themselves.
Yep.
So they're on site. An average inspector might get his phone mightn't ring once in a day. He might get a client from time to time ring up. One of us might give him a call about something, but generally speaking, he's there to inspect the property, and he's not getting those interruptions.
Focus on the job.
Yeah.
And so you've done your defect. You've sent the report through to the client and the supervisor. You do a second one sometimes if the client wants to do it. Most of the time, I'd imagine that the second one's necessary. Otherwise, how do you really know that the tape hasn't been taken off the wall?
We generally recommend it, and for the price, it's really good value for money for us to go back and make sure it's been done and done properly as well. It's pretty important. We'd always recommend a second. And you can book that when you do your first booking.
One.
You can opt to do 1 or 2 2-part inspections. So.
And then so you go back second time, something's not done. Another report goes out.
That's it.
Yep. So you just keep repeating that process until it's done.
Yeah, with a 2-part inspection. So we've done our first.
Yep.
We go back with that report on our iPads and we tick them off that they've been done. And when that report is sent, all the ones that have been done disappear, and you're left with the ones that haven't been done. And if we see, for an instance, the other day, one where the builder had the door was binding on the top, so they've planed the door. But they hadn't painted it. So we put, item 14, door now not binding, but now needs painting.
One
rectified, another defect.
Another one pops up. So,
And that's, I think the way that, and that's the good approach is that, clients will go through, they see, 10 defects and lose their marbles like they've bought a lemon. when necessarily they've got to remember that's actually a really good result. We work off 10. You know, if we got under 10 defects, you know, we are, and that's our KPI set for our supervisors because it shows a level of care, I suppose. And of course, you'll have you know, outliers that go over that, and some come in, you know, under that. But as I said earlier, having so many moving parts, and it's as easy as the cleaner going in for the final clean and hitting the vacuum, you know, on the door or one of the walls, and there's 2 or 3 defects there alone, you know. So, you know, having under 10 or 15 or even 20 defects is a really good result.
And it's important too, like numbers are one thing, but to read those as well and interpret what they are. Because sometimes you'll get a report, like in our guys, you know, I'll know it, you go out to site and you're going through and you think this is a really good house, and no sooner you're thinking that, you might have 25 items.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are only minor stuff,
Yeah.
and sometimes
Could be 15 paint defects.
Yeah, small
You know,
little paint,
overall,
Yeah.
there's not that many.
Yeah.
Look, I've seen companies, like pre-purchase companies, that make a good house look bad
Right.
because of their terminology and how they've worded their reports. You know, they have a 28-page report and only, you know, 1 page. If you break all that down, it's only 1 page of defects. But when the owner gets 28 pages, they go into panic mode.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know. So-
Understandably too, without experience, you know, it's like anything you see, the bigger, you know, it's a bit confronting, isn't it?
So, we've always worked on the KISS system. You know, if you keep it simple, if it's written there, everybody can understand it. The client, the supervisor, the builder. You know, we don't use, you know, it doesn't meet standard 5.8, whatever. It's just, you know, bedroom 1 door binding, top edge. That's it. Everybody will understand us.
And you have to keep it simple when you're working with builders, don't you?
Well, yeah, but more so for the client, so they can read it and they know this is it.
Yeah. And so, quick question before I get your thoughts finally on what's happening at the moment. Most defects ever in a report for a normal, you know, 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car, 200 square metre roughly.
I thought you were saying 210 items.
I'd say that house isn't right.
Well, I did a 210 square metre duplex.
Right.
And I had over 150 written items, and I'd gone through a roll of tape,
Yeah. Wow.
and then I wanted to kill the supervisor.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
You, Eric?
Mate, personally, probably I think 150, around about that. Yeah.
Whiz.
So that would turn into what, a 3-hour, 4-hour inspection?
Yeah, it can really
Something
drag
that
out,
long?
yeah.
That's
this one was out the back of Newcastle, like Maitland, 42 degrees, and I was running late from a plane.
Yeah. Right.
I wasn't happy.
Yeah. Right.
And generally, if they get to that point, like just off the top of my head, I can remember one in Alexandria in Sydney. You know, it was similar, 100+ items, and it was for a developer, and I just rang him and said, it's not good enough, you know. So we really let the clients know if it's bad. And on the other side of the coin, if it's a good house, we commend the builder on that as well.
Yeah.
We think that's really important.
And that's what we were just chatting about someone earlier, and that's what we really love is that everyone's, as I said earlier, bad news sells, and everyone's very, very quick to point out the shit, or, you know, when something's not quite gone to plan. But
negative.
a lot of the time you don't get the good feedback, you know, and that's what we really like interacting with handovers.com, because it allows us to, you know, give critique and feedback supervisors and trades, but we can also let them know, boys, you've done a good job, you know, well done, you know, like Nick or Eric or Paul, they've gave us a call or they've sent us a message and said that, you know, lot 1 at Augustine Heights is a ripper. Well done. Let's keep that going. So it allows that culture to build within your organisation to provide that positive but constructive feedback and criticism.
Look, we always try to put on the bottom, you know, this is a well-finished house, well done to the supervisor and their trades. We did some houses in Townsville, and the reports came back, and I was using a guy that I'd trained as a subcontractor, and no defects found, no defects found, no defects found. I said to my office girl, get me a flight to Townsville, I've got to go and look.
Right.
You've never seen it before.
So I jumped on a plane, unannounced, rang the supervisor from the airport. I said, look, I forget his name, Bill. I said, mate, no disrespect to you or my guy, but I've got to look at these houses. He said, sure, I'll meet you there. So I went there, walked in, walked out, put my hand out, and I called him a freak. I said, mate, you're a freak.
Yeah, right.
He said, what? I said, mate, these are the best houses I've ever seen. How do you do it?
Wow.
So we had a bit of a chat, yeah. And then I rang my guy and said, mate, I'm here. I just couldn't not come up and have a look, you know, because to me it was wrong, but it was right. They were magnificent,
Wow.
and he was consistent. You know.
And delivering them, like doing that once, but delivering that consistently is another thing.
He was a special supervisor.
Yeah, wow. And so I've got two questions before I wrap this up. Advice for clients who are, going through the construction, either, thinking about it or partway through it or about to come to handover. Obviously, on a you'll have a bias, but from our point of view, it's absolutely a necessity to engage someone. Yes. It's got to be. You're going to save yourself, the cost of a couple $100 or $400 or $500. You're going to save yourself time, money, and stress, and be confident with your decision.
Yes, they certainly are, because a lot of people are interstate with investors, so they've got to get a time off work, get on a plane, hire a car. So if we go and do that for them and give them peace of mind, they don't have to do that, which makes their life a lot easier.
Yeah. Or they rent the property out, and then a defect is found, or tapware breaks, or something happens, they're up for the money straight away because the defects weren't found. So it's it's going to cost them long term anyway. 12 months, 24 months. So you guys could have found it, and the builder could have fixed it. They fall out of the warranty period, and now they're up for it. So
that raises a good point that you just brought up, because you guys also do, because we have a 12-month defect
maintenance period.
Yeah. You guys would, I'd imagine, do like offer a service where you do a 12-month inspection just to make sure that everything's still good. So because it's almost your last opportunity to get things
Certainly
right
do.
again.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, and that would be, I'd imagine, a popular service.
It's getting more popular.
Yeah.
Probably overlooked at the start, but yeah.
Yeah. What we've found with that is that what we say is we tell the builder to send us the maintenance list that the tenant has got, or the owner, and we go through that, and we will look what is legitimate items or what's not legitimate. Because an owner sometimes think that everything that happens to that house is covered by maintenance. Like a lot of clients don't know that brickwork isn't a structural element of the house. As I explained to a client, it's there to keep the water off the plaster. That's all it's there for. And it's not waterproof. That's why those little holes down the bottom, So, it's a thing that is growing, that we do more and more maintenance, which if we produce a builder to action list for a maintenance list, the builder then goes, I've got to go and fix all those items. Whereas if he gets a 2-page list from the client, he's got to then go and try and talk to that owner or tenant or whoever, property manager, and say, this isn't, that is, this isn't. They don't believe the builder. That's what happens. They go, you're trying to con us or whatever. So if we do the list, you'll find that it's a legitimate list to fix.
And I think with that too, like the practical completion or the handover inspection is really a key one, because if you look at like an example of damage, once you've had the tenant in there for 12 months and you want to get a chip tile replaced that's in the kitchen. The builder's going to look at that and say, well, that wasn't picked up on your practical completion inspection. It's very likely that that's happened post-handover.
You're very hard to come back and try and argue that point then, isn't it?
And damage, it can be, before the cleaners come through, when it's still in construction, the supervisor's not going to pick up all that stuff. Whereas when we go in, generally it's had a builder's clean. We can pick all that kind of stuff as well.
Fresh set of eyes, yeah.
And make sure it's fixed before it goes to the hands of the owner or the tenant, which is pretty important.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, guys, we've covered some awesome information. I can't thank you guys enough for coming in, because that's really going to shed another perspective, isn't it, on what goes in on the background, and a really important element to building a home is making sure that you're getting your money's worth, I suppose, and it's a good quality home as well. So I can't thank you guys enough for coming in today. To get in contact with handovers.com, I mean, it says it in the name, but it goes without saying, is you go to handovers.com. And thanks to Paul and Eric for coming in. As a token and working with us, we're offering all of our, in conjunction with handovers.com, a 10% discount across all of our clients or introducers, agents, and anyone, because we can't speak highly enough of you guys and the work that you do. So that'll be in the link below, or in the comment section, or wherever it may be. It depends where you're watching this. But guys, thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate it again, and we just really love working with you guys.
Okay, Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Yeah,
for
thanks for
having us.
coming in, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.